Hi, it's Kathy Missildine, and this week we're going to be talking about organizational effectiveness and development and employee relations. So, wanted to start off by talking about organizational effectiveness, or OD, as some people refer to it in HR. When you think about OD, you think about those interventions that are designed to improve the organization, and designed to improve a process, or even at the individual level. So, typically, you look at interventions at all three stages. What's going on in the organization? Is there a process we need to change? And then does the individual role need to change? So it is very related to change management. Change management has to be a foundation. So, for example, if you've decided that there needs to be a structural change within the organization, in other words, we're going from a kind of a hierarchy that is very kind of tall with lots of layers, and now we're going to go to a more flat organization. That's going to require some change management about who reports to who, what jobs have been changing, what does all this mean, and why we're doing it. So I think when you think about OD, it's hard to separate that from change management. And for those of you that have heard, there's been a lot of talk out in the blogosphere and HR related experts that talk about perhaps HR should be separated, and the way they could separate, a natural separation would be the transactional work like benefits, payroll, things of that nature, and then the more strategic work, which typically does fall in the OD area. So what I wanted to do is talk about some of the OD initiatives that you probably might be familiar with, and that your company may have embarked on. And these come straight out of your reading. It could be a team building process. So think about, what kind of issues are going on in the workplace that would need a team building type intervention. So teams that the performance have gone down. We've got teams that may have bad morale. We have newly formed teams that may need to understand the team structure and what it means to be on a team. You've got diversity programs. You think about that as an initiative, maybe because we've got, our workplaces today are the most diverse they've ever been. We've got individuals from all parts of the world. We've got individuals of all different cultural backgrounds, all different races, all different nationalities. We've got 5 generations in the workplace. We've got the veterans, the boomers, the Xers, the Yers, and now the millennials. And that's the first time ever. So with all that diversity, sometimes comes, it could bring, friction, chaos, but most of the time it brings, great innovation and great ideas. But sometimes we need to understand how to work with each other and how to communicate with each other. So I think it's, in today's day and time, I think this issue of diversity and inclusion as it relates to communication is critically important, and I see OD departments taking this on more and more these days. And then finally, anything to do with quality initiatives. If we're having, and this can even be in the service arena, so if we're having issues with our service delivery, quality of our product, quality of our process, anything like that, OD professionals can kind of peel back that onion, trying to figure out, what is the root cause. So I think that separates OD from how kind of typical HR professionals solve problems, is really trying to get to the root cause of the problem. So for example, with turnover, we all measure turnover, and I see a lot of organizations talk about turnover in the kind of global sense. Our organizational turnover is XYZ, say 30%. Well, that doesn't tell us much at that level. So really what you want to do is kind of take a more analytical approach to that turnover and say, who's leaving, why are they leaving, what are we going to do about it, and what is it costing us, and what if we do nothing? And so in my example with the 30%, if you start kind of segmenting that data and slicing that data in a different way, and you find out, well, as I look at this data, we're having an issue losing our high-performing individuals, because we do have those identified, and they're leaving at a rate 3 to 1 over the non-high performers. So really at that point in time, I think that's the issue. So we need to get down to what's going on with these high performers. Is it they don't have room for opportunity? Is their job not what they expected? Is it the management? Do they not have the tools and equipment? Are they not getting the correct recognition? So we really need to figure that out before we can intervene, create an initiative to, let's say, lower turnover and increase retention with that group. So that'd be a typical problem that an OD department might be able to solve. And so I think as you read through here, I don't know about you, but as you read through these sections, I really love the OD part of the business, because I really think you're able to really peel back the onion and use the more analytical side of our skill set. And if you were reading, you could see all the different tools that are available out there with the cause and effect diagram, or the fish diagram. I'm sure you've used that in many meetings. The histogram, we use those in every single PowerPoint. The scatter diagram, control chart, things of that nature. So really it's about marrying the data with the solution to the problem, which really gives HR a lot more credibility. And so one of the slides, I believe this is slide, I should have my glasses on, 16, it talks about HR's role in the OED implementation, and the first bullet point is providing measurement tools. Because I don't know if you guys have kind of felt this, but I feel like there is pressure on HR to become a more analytical function, to provide more data to the C-suite. So as you're reading these modules, I think you can get an undertone of, measurement is critically important in HR. So HR is responsible for guiding effective organizational structures, encouraging strategy as a basis for all decisions. I think that is a critical bullet. Everything we do in HR, every single thing, not just OD, should be grounded or pointing back to the organizational strategy. So, for example, most companies that I deal with today, their organizational strategy is around growth. We've just come out of one of the world's worst recessions, so there's only one way to go, and that is up. And so I see a lot of companies going through mergers and acquisitions, getting their infrastructure ready for growth. So if you've got that strategy, doesn't HR have to align with that strategy, whether it's, organizational effective initiatives or not? But doesn't comp have to be aligned with a growth strategy? Doesn't comp look different when you're trying to encourage growth? Would job descriptions look a little different? Would training look a little different? Would the competencies that we need now look a little different? I believe all that is yes. So that third bullet point is actually, I think, should be number one. Create relevant job designs, develop management and leadership skills, and in other words, the bench strength that the business needs, and then linking what the employee does to the strategy. So an example of that is, many of you may be familiar with Chick-fil-A here, that's headquartered in Atlanta. Chick-fil-A has kind of switched their strategy. They wanted to serve good food fast. They wanted to stand out amongst their competitors like McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell, all those guys. And as you can tell, for those of you that have visited their restaurant inside, they bring their food to you. There's flowers on the table. There's free refills. In the to-go line or the drive-up window, they have people stationed there to take your order when it's backed up. And after everything you say, they always reply with, "It's my pleasure." And so understanding that this strategy of putting the customer first and the customer needs first is understood from Dan Cathy all the way down to the person serving you that Chick-fil-A sandwich. So the person serving you that Chick-fil-A sandwich, they have to understand that what they do in that moment of truth when the customer orders, the food is served, the cash is taken, how important that is to serving good food fast. So that cashier or that associate understands that the better the customer service, the more the customer will buy, the more the customer will talk about our organization, and the more times the customer will come back, which translates into more revenue. So that's an example of how to link, employee contributions to the strategy, and it's hard. If it was easy, we'd all have cultures like Chick-fil-A and Zappos and who else? Let's see, the Ritz-Carlton, Nordstrom's, all those people famous for their awesome customer service, and it's because they link it all the way down to the individual. And so I think those are the principles I really wanted to point out for you in the OD piece. And I alluded to earlier about the change management piece. You can't really initiate an initiative or execute an initiative without considering change management. So let's say we're going to a team-based environment, and we also have a brand new strategy. All that has to be communicated because those are two big changes that affects the jobs, the people, the practice, the way we do things around here, the culture, everything. And so the guiding change is slide, I wish I'd have put my glasses on, 17. And it says you have to start with a vision. What is this vision for change? So in the example of the strategy, our vision is we want to grow, we want to gain market share, we want to serve good food fast, whatever it might be. What is our strategy for this change? In other words, what is our roadmap? What is our action plan? We have to make sure we have champions of change. In other words, who are those people that are critical in this process? Now, they may be change champions or they could be change resistors, but we need them on board to help us guide this change through the organization. And I'll talk about resistance to change in just a moment. Then after that, we've got to make sure we communicate and communicate often. I would say in most change interventions, over communication is better than none. I'm working with a client now. They are going through an HRIS transformation. They're going from PeopleSoft to Workday. Huge change. Workday is employee self-service, manager self-service. They're used to going to HR to fill out forms, and HR kind of holding their hand, guiding them through the process. This is a cultural change. And in order for this to be a success, the whys behind all this have to be clearly articulated up front. We're going to a new system. Our legacy system is very old. There's no more support for this system. We feel it puts our organization at risk. The new system will have, transparent data. We'll have access to data. We'll be able to get more efficient reporting. Is linked into our financials. All those reasons have to be articulated up front so the employees will understand, what's in it for them. And what's in it for the employee is they can make changes on the fly to address changes, W-4 changes, all that sort of thing. And then finally, in the change management, guiding change slide, it talks about get out in front of problems. So back to my example of the HRIS, we were hearing things like, oh, people are afraid of the cloud, and, oh, this is going to be more work on managers. That was kind of the little talk that was going on behind the scenes. So we got out in front of that and started having little town halls and lunch and learns about how safe the cloud was. Matter of fact, their timekeeping system was in the cloud. They just didn't realize it. And how, it's not more work, it's more efficient. So now managers, instead of doing a paper requisition, can go in the system, fill out the requisition, and have it forwarded through the approval process, which will probably save about 2 or 3 hours on average. So getting in front of those problems, communicating the issues and the solution is critically important. Now, there is an issue of resistance to change, and although it wasn't in the slides, I did want to mention it because I think if I think about my clients today and the changes they're going through, I would say on average, most of my clients are going through 2 to 3 big organizational changes. And I feel like that's the new normal, and probably you guys do as well. So how do you, get HR being able to manage that, I think is critical, and not only manage it, but leading the change effort. So what happens when you have those resistors? And, I get asked this question a lot because we all know that some people, they're pretty comfortable with change and ambiguity, okay with chaos. They kind of just roll with the flow. And that's great. and they embrace change, but that is a very small portion of the population. And then we have those that are skeptical that just kind of stay on the fence to find out, is this really a better solution, or do I really like the old way? And so getting those folks over to the other side is critical. But then you have a certain population that are going to resist it no matter what. And they come in all shapes and sizes. It's not just the boomers or the veterans or the older set. You hear that a lot. But it could just be a person that's used to using the Microsoft suite of products and never have used, let's say, an Apple Mac before. And so it's a too big of a learning curve. Or, it's somebody that's been used to a process that has 17 steps. Now, because of technology, it only has 2 steps, and they don't want to do that. They're bored with their job, and so they're resisting that change. So it could come in many, many shapes and form. And there's no good answer for those resistors. You can, try early to get their buy-in, try to talk about the benefits, try to talk about why we're going down this road, talk about why it's going to be better for that employee, if that's a true story. Sometimes that may not be. It depends on the circumstances. If that employee's job is no longer needed because of technology, that's a whole new conversation. But anyway, so at some point in time when we've given people enough time to go through that kind of change cycle, because it's kind of like the change work is based on the work done when you grieve. So it's, you're shocked, you get to acceptance, maybe you go back and you're denying, you reject it, you resist it. There's all kinds of emotions. And so when we've given the employees the tools, the communication, the time, all that they need, and they're still resistant, sometimes we just have to make some difficult decisions. Maybe the new normal, the new environment, the new strategy, the new software is just not for them, and they'd be better off in another environment, and sometimes that happens. And if we set expectations to say, your new job means that you have to do XYZ task in this system, and they're resistant to that, then that's a decision that they have to make. And so, unfortunately, I see that, I see that a lot, especially in, like I said, most clients that I deal with have a change in strategy, a change in technology. They're reorganizing. They're going through a merger and acquisition. That is a huge change. And all these may be going on, at the same time. And so it's a lot for the employees to deal with. It's a lot for HR to deal with. And it's a lot for the managers to deal with. So my recommendation is that HR gets involved in all of these changes really quick, way before the change takes place, so that these principles that we talked about with the change champions and trying to mitigate some of this resistance happens on the front end. Because when we start implementing, I promise it's way too late. So I appreciate your time on the subject of organizational effectiveness and change, and I will talk to you very soon.